Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 10 of season 4 of Arrow called Blood Debts. And I felt this was a reasonably okay episode. It wasn't the strongest episode of the season, but there were a lot of good bits here and there. It kind of mixed in with some stuff that seemed a bit lackluster. So let's just kind of get right into things. And one of the points that I did like that they made in this episode was that Oliver really does have a tendency to kind of forget the things that he's learned over time. Like, for example, the whole idea of, you can't, when he was thinking about trying to buddy up to Damien Dark, when they point out, like, look what happened when you tried to do that with Ra's al Ghul. Look how well that ended. And so here it's pointed out to Oliver that you don't want to sort of become the sort of person to lose all the things about yourself that made Felicity love you in the first place. Um, and is it just me, or did it really kind of look like Oliver went back on that whole "I'm not going to kill people anymore"? Because there's that one ghost he's fighting. He knocks the guy back into like an electrical box and seems to fry the hell out of him. And then there's another guy who runs away from Oliver and jumps into like a power transformer. But still, I'm pretty sure Oliver killed that guy. And it's like, are we gonna remark on this? I mean, this feels like a bit of an ongoing thing with these shows this season. Like over on the Flash, Team Flash like killed two bad guys, and nobody ever said a damn word about it. I mean, gosh. But yeah, and speaking of whole really questionable decisions on the part of Oliver, he's kind of gone out there and said like, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be this hero that Starling City needs and try to be a good guy. And then he attacks a police van and frees a guy who's guilty of multiple murders. Aren't the cops going to have something to say about this? The media, the public? I mean, I kind of get the impression that generally the Arrow had been mostly favorably received, but Green Arrow had been mostly favorably received by the people, or, the whole vigilantes were at least tolerated by the public in the town. But here, what the hell, Oliver? And yeah, not really, not really feeling that particular aspect of things. Although that scene where Dig kind of gets on Oliver's case about that whole situation, that was really cool. That was good stuff. Um, Nothing really huge to say about Felicity this episode, except that I really loved that scene where she's like, okay, I woke up in this hospital and my ring was gone, so I thought you decided that you didn't want to be with me anymore because it looks like I'm going to be in a paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of my life. And Oliver's just like, no, the ER nurse just took the ring away from you. When I said for better or for worse, I meant it. I mean, that was very sweet and really romantic. And, I did like that. And it does sort of show a little bit of a flaw on Felicity's part, that she's kind of insecure about this whole situation. I think she still has that idea that, I still can't believe that a guy like Oliver is into someone like me. Which is sort of weird, because Felicity has more than proved herself to be Oliver's equal, particularly last season and this one. But yeah, insecurities are not such an easy thing to shake, right? Now this episode, I did like the whole situation with Thea, talking about how Damien Dark's magic had kind of messed with her bloodlust, but the whole connection that she has between her and Anarchy. I mean, she's basically the one that burned him and sort of really made him an even more messed up guy than he already was. And Anarchy, being a smart guy, knows immediately how to push her buttons, and even seems to become really creepily obsessed with her, which is both cool, but sort of like. So I kind of like the idea of maybe developing him as somebody who's a little bit of a personal nemesis for Thea. He's somebody that she really has that connection to. Somebody that really, well, as I said, that's somebody she has a personal connection to. Sort of like, oh, Bugs. Who was it that Dig had that connection to? Oh, I mean, besides his brother. Yeah, okay, whatever. But yeah, I like kind of the idea that of no, it was, no, 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 it was kind of like how Brick kind of had connections to both Quentin and Malcolm. I don't know. It's late and I'm tired. Give me a break. But yeah, the idea of sort of anarchy as sort of a reoccurring personal nemesis for Thea, that would be pretty cool. I would definitely like to see that. Although, considering what happened to him, I think he got off physically pretty lightly. And with that mask, it's like, dude, you don't really need that. And it looks a little bit too much like the Michael Myers mask to really work. In the comics, the Anarchy mask is a much more clearly defined one. But I can kind of cut the writers some slack on that one, because if you want to have a good performance with a character wearing a mask, you really do need to be able to see the eyes and the mouth. If you don't have that, it's not impossible. I mean, look at Hugo Weaving in V for Vendetta, for example. But it is extremely difficult. You do often really need to be able to see the eyes and the mouth to really kind of have emotions translate for most people. Um, let's see. Uh, yeah, beyond that, I don't really have too awful much to say about Anarchy. I'm not sure though how I feel about the whole idea that Damien Dark was automatically going to know it was Quentin that ratted him out. If, oh hey, Anarchy is out there running around killing bad guys and even being able to track down where Damien Dark lives, it would be pretty reasonable to think that Oliver was just following one step behind Anarchy. But okay. Um, Although I did like that Quentin kind of got out there and said to Oliver, like, okay, so are you dropping bodies again? And Oliver just like, just this one guy. Okay, so I guess that ghost didn't count, or maybe the guy was just hurt very, very badly after having God only knows how many volts of electricity shoot through his body. Folks, I've been on the receiving end of a nasty electrical shock, and yeah, I was lucky. I was ultimately okay, but it was really, if I'd been a little less lucky, I could have been ended up dead. So yeah. Let's see. Nothing really huge to say about Laurel this episode, but I did like that she and Thea got to have a little conversation about what's going on with her. I do think that sort of Thea kind of does need that sort of older female person that she can kind of lean on a little bit and sort of share some things with. I think kind of developing that sort of dynamic between the two of them would be really cool. Speaking of relationships between, sort of semi-sibling kind of relationships, well, not semi-sibling, I definitely did like that whole situation with Dig and his brother. I mean, Dig having to go in there and whoop the hell out of his own brother for information, that's some dark stuff, man. And I liked how they kind of fleshed out Andy as a character a little bit. The idea that he had been selling drugs and that Dig more or less sort of talked him into joining the military as a way to straighten himself out. Now, to me, that's probably the most interesting thing they've done with Andy as a character since they grabbed him from Hive. It sort of does really make the case that Andy saw himself as somebody who tried to change, but it's just like, man, this person, even though it's not a good person, this is who I am. And then this ultimately kind of comes around to the two of them just playing cards like they used to, indicating that, yeah, there's some bad stuff that's gone down between them, but they can't deny that, hey, we're brothers and we care about each other. And it's such a little thing, but, as often with family, it's the little things that matter the most. La da da da. Anything else to say? Nothing particular to say about what we see in the future 4 months from now. I never thought for a moment that they were going to kill Felicity off, and the producers of the show had even confirmed, like, no, it's not Felicity in the grave. But the idea that Felicity has become down with the idea of killing somebody. Well, now, who would have to be in that grave that she would feel that way? Well, the only people who really can come to my mind would be her mom. Although killing Felicity's mom would be a little bit weak because she's only popped up a couple of times, so I don't think we'd really care that much. Oliver would care because this is somebody who was going to be his mother-in-law, and obviously Felicity would be pretty darn upset if her mother was murdered. A lot of people are floating the idea that it's going to be Dig, but no, he's just too important to the show. All right, he's been there since day one, and I can't really imagine taking him out. Although I do have to admit, if I really stop and think about it, the idea of if you really wanted to wreck Oliver's world, taking away the guy who's basically sort of his older brother slash best friend, oh man, you thought it was bad for Oliver and Team Arrow when they killed Sarah. Oh, kill Dig? Ooh. I mean, the only thing that I can see really positive coming out of that is Lila could step in and sort of fill that role a little bit. Somebody, the person with the military and intelligence connections. But Lila's always going to have to be juggling the fact that, hey, I've got a daughter I need to be looking after. So I don't know if that's such a great one. Now, if the subplot of Quentin becoming more strongly tied to Felicity's mom, maybe the point that he himself maybe it'd be kind of crazy if what if Quentin asks Felicity's mom to marry him, and then he dies. Well, okay, Felicity's kind of cool with Quentin Lance. I mean, she probably thinks he's a cool guy. He certainly seems to be a good person for the most part. I mean, he's definitely had his moments, but so is everybody else on the show. But killing him would be a real blow to her mom. And, I think Felicity would have been down with the idea of, Quentin as a potential stepdad once, if this whole relationship had really started to go somewhere, that made her think hey, this is making my mom super happy. Quentin's a good guy. It would technically make Laurel my stepsister, and she and I were already friends, and I respect her a lot. I mean, that would really be a real win-win. And it would probably do a lot to sort of heal some of the tension that's going on between Quentin and the rest of Team Arrow. But again, that's just kind of spitballing a little bit. But let's see. Oh yeah. So Oliver gets to mix it up with Damien Dark again. And I did like about this is that, yeah, when Damien Dark breaks out the magic, Oliver's in serious trouble. But when they're actually going hand to hand, it's like Oliver's basically, I wouldn't exactly say whipping his butt, but Oliver's definitely winning that fight, and Damien Dark is like, all right, F this, magic time. I really kind of wanted when that happened, before that happened, for Oliver to go oh, hey, those old League of Assassins skills gotten rusty, huh? But if that's the situation, then it sort of makes it well, doesn't this sort of indicate to us that maybe we need to take another look at how we're fighting Damien Dark? I mean, we've already seen on the show that he does seem to need his hands to use his magic, and he apparently does need to speak. Now, Team Arrow might not have this full information, but I'm pretty sure Malcolm at least understood, hey, if I immobilize his hands, he can't really use his magic. And Damien came really close to getting killed by that bomb. It looks like he used magic to teleport out of there at the last second. So you got to think, well, okay, if we can deal so that it's difficult for him to use his hands, it's difficult for him to speak, then maybe we can do something about this. Canary cry, that's pretty good for getting people to have a hard time. If people are really inclined to kind of clamp their hands over their ears or whatever. Maybe some flashbangs. I mean, have we considered some sort of toxic gas? Okay, I mean, I'm probably excessively nitpicking, speculating, whatever. But still, it sort of seems like... Let me put it this way. If you've ever played, RPGs, tabletop RPGs or things like that, especially stuff like Dungeons & Dragons, you know that there are ways to deal with people who can use magic. Now, not all of these options are going to be available in a world like Arrow, but that also opens up a lot of other potential things. Like I talked about, flashbangs and stuff. So, or maybe just shoot him with a sniper rifle. I mean, if you're down with killing him, seriously, man, sniper rifle. And, Damien Dark does only have the two hands, so I assume he can only, at most, sort of stop arrows and bullets coming at him from two directions at once. All right, the last thing I did like though is we get to sort of a good look at Damien. We get seriously introduced to Damien Dark's wife here, and it's really heavily implied that she's just as evil as he is, which I really, really like this idea. When we've seen it before, it sort of implied like she was just this normal person. But if it's like that, if she's somebody who's cut from the same cloth as him, now that's very interesting. That's really interesting. And she's even like, yeah, Green Arrow saved her life, but yeah, you should have just killed him on the spot. Which, again, that makes her seem even worse than he is, which immediately makes her an extremely interesting character. In fact, there's only one thing that I didn't like about that scene. Damien's is like, okay, I'm going to put you and our daughter up at the Hilton for a month, or the hotel, or the Hyatt, or whatever the hell he said. And the way he said it, it sounds like he's talking about the one that's there in Star City. It's like, dude, why don't you want to get your family as far away from these people as humanly possible? Like, why aren't you sending them to, like, Europe or Australia or something? Someplace where there's a frickin' ocean between them and all the trouble that's going down in this town. Now, granted, Star City does seem to be the hive of whatever it is he's planning, so maybe he wants to keep them safe close just so it's like, okay, it's go time with our plan. Let me get you to the safe place that I've built here in Star City because I'm going to blow the world up now, or whatever the hell he's planning to do. I mean, that's the only rational explanation that I can think of. So, with that said, I think I've covered everything that I have for this episode. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Just a quick reminder, folks. Legends of Tomorrow is on the docket for shows that I am going to be reviewing. In fact, I actually just finished watching the first episode just before I started recording these reviews. Long story short, I enjoyed the first episode, and I'm just going to take a little time to sort of mull over what I've seen, sort of think about things a little bit, and I should be able to have a review for that up tomorrow. So please look forward to that. Of course, you can also join me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi and on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.